Okay, great. Okay, so just a history lesson here. So born and raised in Newfoundland. My life is really my family, design, mountain biking, and music. And so anything I do in life usually has some sort of relation to those four. Also love the Raptors too, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm married with two kids. I have a son, Devin, who's 12, and he's very technically savvy, and I have Jordan, who's 10, who's definitely on the artsy side. In fact, she already has made me design her a logo. She's already using the terminology and making me push pixels for her. So I'm gonna make sure that she is, going to be taking over my gig here in the future. So 20 years as a professional graphic designer, and I've been a design educator now for 3 years. So how did I get here? How I got here? And just to kind of explain and kind of give you that path of how I ended up, in this spot here today, as a designer, as an educator, and part of RGD. And so bear with me as I take you through this. But, thinking this is my 20th year as a designer, my path to graphic design, to me, it felt like it was maybe a little late, but it was actually started in my last year of high school. In fact, it probably started the latter part of my last year in high school. However, art was always something that was, that I always kind of gravitated towards. And like, I started sketching at a young age, and in middle school is where I really started doing these things, which is like sketching my own sneaker designs. And I don't know why that was the case. And these aren't mine, by the way. Mine were much better. No, but just to give you a sense of, this is the kind of things I was drawing. I wasn't doing landscapes or doing, characters or portraits or anything like that. It was sneaker designs for some reason. I'm not sure why, but and that I kind of kept going through high school, or at least until I got to high school, because then it's when you become cool and you don't do a lot of these things anymore. But I still dabbled in art in high school, and it wasn't until I got to my grade 12 year, my senior year, when I had to kind of start thinking about that, because apparently that's what you're supposed to do in high school. You're supposed to have everything figured out, and that's definitely not the case. But that's the sense you get, because all your friends around you, they're picking where they're going to go and where you're going to land and where they're moving and getting all that stuff sorted out. I just had no idea. I don't know why. One of the ideas was like radiology, and I don't even know why. I just had no reason to choose that in a sense. And so along came these co-op programs, and I'm not sure if everyone has experienced these in high school, but it's basically like an internship where you get to go and explore different careers that's available to you. And for me, in a smaller town in Newfoundland, there wasn't many places for an artistic person to land. My first gig actually was doing at a radio station, and I love music, but it was kind of boring, it was like country music. So, no offense to anyone out there, but it was just not for me. I was the skater into grunge music at the time. So, the whole country thing was not my forte. But the second option was the classified section or department at a local newspaper. And I'll just say right now, I'm going to date myself a number of times through this presentation, but this became intriguing to me. So what you're looking at right now, and by the way, these aren't ads or pictures from when I was there. God, I'm not that old, but just showing you in the classifieds department at the newspaper at the time in the mid 90s, everything was cut out and pasted with this wax machine. So you'd run the ad or a piece of paper through this wax machine that would coat the bottom, and then you're able to freely place it on a gridded paper. And this is how like the pages were laid. I don't know if you can see that in there, but it was hand cut and hand placed to organize this page, which in the end it would take a photograph of it. I don't know why that was the process, but it was really intriguing to me that I was actually learning, and I was stuck with these two older gentlemen that probably was working together for years. And for those that ever heard of the movies Grumpier Old Men and Grumpy Old Man, this is the two guys I was working with. Super fun to be around, and these guys again probably spent years working together. And so they showed me some stuff and things that you know, terms that you guys as students might be learning now or are going to learn or have learned. I mean, learning words like grid and alignment and balance were all still things that were super important when they were teaching me how to lay out these classified pages. And if an ad was going to run the next week, they just peel it off because it was wax, put it up on the board, and then use it the next week, right? So that to me, even though I didn't realize it, that was the start of me getting into design and layout in a sense. And then, of course, you're supposed to do 3 placements in your year, at least in my high school, and run out of places that I could do this. So I had this kind of crazy, wacky idea where I approached my co-op teacher and says, what if you let me, you know, do a project where I'm in charge of basically designing everything needed for our high school graduation? So they said, sure, go ahead. So this was, I guess, officially my first freelance non-paid project. So I was put in charge of the entire brand of the high school. I didn't even know what the word brand meant then, but that's what I was in charge of doing. So while all of my classmates were out, at various places during their co-op, here I was in the workshop of a school, and I was in charge of program and marketing and set design and wayfinding and the budget and ordering all this material for the set. It was just crazy. The fact that they let me do this was just beyond me. But what you're looking at right now is I just took this photo a couple of minutes ago. This was stuff that my mom had given to me last summer from some of the pieces from my graduation. So, you know, see how consistent that brand is across every piece. So no, but I mean, this was kind of really crazy for me to do something like that. And so it got to a point where it was graduation time, and you know, during the what they call graduation walk or parade, they say, you know, you need to tell us what you want to be. So when we announce your name, and tell us what profession you're going to be. And I was like, graphic designer. You know, then I'll get, yes, I'm going to be a graphic designer. And people say, well, what is that? And I say, I don't know. I'll get back to you. I have no idea. I got to figure this out. So for me, for those of you who know Alex Center, this was kind of probably my Alex Center moment where I am a graphic designer. But what that meant, I really didn't know. So after high school was done, you know, I quickly found myself, I'm one of those people that I'll go the opposite of the crowd, and I'll do my own way. I'll go my own way. Definitely went in the opposite direction, like literally like most of my friends went to MUN on the far east coast of Newfoundland. I went west coast Newfoundland, and at a community college took a 2-year art school program where I learned or tried to learn how to paint. I learned some art history, drawing, even got into pottery pretty good, and still love to this day. Had to do some jewelry making. Film photography was part of it, even a class called Mastering the Loom, which was interesting. I ended up making like a 7 or 8 foot long scarf by accident, but I still felt like, even though I got through 2 years of art school and it was fun and I had a great time and I learned some stuff, I still felt like I hadn't arrived. Like, this is it. I'm going to do whatever I can to put all my time and effort into it. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I really didn't put my effort in. And even my instructor at one point said, are you sure you're in the right program? So never a good sign when your instructor is asking you that. But I was like, I mean, this is cool and I like it. But then came this item here. And I don't know if anybody knows what this thing is, but it's an old school hand scanner. So basically you take it, you lay it on a piece of paper or a photo, and you actually drag your hand over it as still as possible to get the image to come up on screen. And so this thing was crazy for me. I was like, this is digital and you can play around with the colors now in pretty terrible software. But this is kind of where it kind of changed for me. So on to finishing art school, I actually got a job in my hometown through the government, where myself and another recent art graduate, we led 16 high school students through this 6-month program where we, as a giant team, created a series of large wall murals around our town. So actually this photo here is just from 17 years ago. This thing was painted. It was still there. It's like 100 foot by 30 feet. I was still pretty impressed that it was still intact, but this was a really kind of fun opportunity and a chance to just just hang out and have a great time with a bunch of other youth. And then but it was time for me to kind of change my scenery, so I decided to move to New Brunswick you know, a little bit closer to Toronto area, but I had some friends there. They said, just come up for a change of scenery, you know, maybe get a job and then kind of see what goes from there. So I was there for a year, and then I decided I just really need to get back on track and figure this thing out. And I knew the design thing was still there, the digital thing was still there, and so I came across a school called Mackenzie College, and so it was a new school at the time. I think it was only the second year in the city here in Moncton, where I am now, and I took their interactive multimedia program, and that was basically everything from Photoshop to 3D Studio Max to Flash to all these other programs, even doing coding. But because I really knew this was it, and I knew I could do well in it. That's where I really put my effort and my time, and I turned out finishing the top of my class, and I do feel it's because it was something that was so intriguing to me. And then I graduated on a Wednesday and found myself in Boston, Massachusetts that Sunday, actually starting my first contract as a designer. So that's kind of what got me into starting that career. So, you know, over a huge spread of time here now between 2001 and 2012, this was pretty much my daily thing, right? Eating sushi one minute and then, you know, totally terrified and don't know what I'm doing the next minute. But, you know, over the course of 12 years, you know, I had an opportunity to work in Boston, Halifax. I spent like nearly 7 years there, and then here in Moncton, New Brunswick, where I'm still here. And I've did everything from starting out as a freelance designer. I then had an opportunity to work as an in-house designer at a marketing firm. And one of those times when I'm going to date myself, the company developed one of the very first content management systems. This was before WordPress, where anybody could go into their website and edit the content. But I did all the designing for them. I also designed over 200 websites in 5 years for their clients. And then I have an opportunity to go into the agency business. So doing design work then for branding and print, and even crazy enough, did some user interface for like wall control units for HVAC units, which was a crazy project. But it was actually 7 years in at this time when I actually felt I was finally really being challenged. So the owner of that business really pushed me. And not many times, I really didn't enjoy it or like it. But I know now, I'm so thankful that I was pushed to do better, to look further, to think more, just to not be satisfied with what I had done. And like I said, I really needed it. And again, didn't know at the time. And I even at the time, during a 4-month or 4-year stint at the agency, I even found myself uninspired, and I didn't know what to do about that. So I actually took time off, kind of just got away from the box of designing in my space, and then just looked at other design work and made sure I was connecting with other designers. And that totally turned the switch around. Like what was first being maybe a bit of a problem, like there was a lot of revisions being asked by my art director. I'd come back from there and I was just designing much better because I was able to kind of break away and be re-inspired and to connect with other designers and get help that way. And so that was one of the very key parts of my career that really helped that trajectory keep going. And so in 2012, I then had the opportunity to actually start working for the school that I attended many years before, and I became their brand and design manager. So I in-house again, so taking care of the brand, doing all the viewbook production design, web, and getting a chance to also kind of be their hype man. I also did some recruiting and traveled around talking about Mackenzie College. Actually, this photo is one of the marketing projects we did where we had students. We took an actual car and mosaicked basically, up to 13,000 pieces of broken mirror on it, made this like mirror ball car basically. And, we were quite known for that around the province and for sure. So that was kind of it was a really fun kind of gig. But the reason why I approached Mackenzie in 2012 is I wanted to teach, but there was no teaching kind of positions available. So finally, 5 years later, I got my opportunity to do that. And I became the lead instructor of the graphic design program there, where I had the opportunity because, it was a private schools. And so they were very much open to, professionals coming in and saying, this is what the industry needs. We were huge on that connection between school and work. And so our program, I had a chance to kind of redevelop the program based on my experiences over the last, at the time, 17 years. And this is how it all comes back around and how I was introduced to RGD. So the person who was in my position before I took it over, they'd introduced me to RGD. They had the opportunity at one point to take their students to Design Thinkers at one point, and I was super interested in that when they came back and shared their stories about that. And you know, I always thought that was a kind of amazing thing. So I was always intrigued. So once I became an instructor, first I became an affiliate member through the college, and then shortly after we decided to add an RGD student membership to the program. So every student who would go through our design program automatically received a student RGD membership for that year. And so that gave them all the resources and all the things that were part of that. And then the big thing we would do is we would fundraise to get to Design Thinkers. So over the course of that time, each year, we, you know, right from the start of September right up until, you know, that October when we would go, we would fundraise pretty much every single bit of money we needed for flights. And we're talking, you know, we're quite a ways away and a few provinces over. So there was flights, accommodations, the cost to get into that. You know, we wanted the students to, like, you know, not be scrounging. So, you know, we raised up money for food and everything else, and got a chance for me to also attend Design Thinkers for the very first time in 2017. And so it was eye-opening, I saw, for my students, especially, you know, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this, but, you know, even becoming a designer and you're not really knowing what that might mean, you know, that's, you know, what is it that I could be? And it's hard to visualize that. But I found that Design Thinkers really opened the eyes of my students. When we would go, they would just meet these people that just almost overnight to them became celebrities in a sense, right? We got a chance to meet great people, you know, speakers and delegates alike. We got a chance to, you know, tour these amazing studios in Toronto, which, you know, we've got some agencies here, but in terms of the opportunities and the expansiveness in Toronto, it was just amazing and eye-opening for a lot of them. And for me, like, this was another part of my career where it's like, it was kind of that re-inspiration or rejuvenation of being in this community and making these connections. And I saw that community that I felt I could fit into. And so, you know, since that 2017, you know, each year we would come back, and we would come and take in the experience of Design Thinkers. So in 2018, I was actually introduced to Hillary, and shortly after was volunteering on the education committee. Just jumping to 2019, I decided to apply for my certification. So at that time, I was well over the requirements in terms of years in. And October 2019, actually during Design Thinkers, is when I was given my certification package. And this is like a photo of that time. I think this was a photo of us kind of manning the RGD booth, a bunch of volunteers that would kind of take over and do that. And so that was 2019. I think 3 weeks later, I think it wasn't that far off, I'm on the board. So, you know, if you let Hillary know you're interested in helping, she's going to make sure that you're going to be helping. So I even remember asking Hillary when she approached me about it, like, how many people did you ask before you came to me? And she swears she didn't ask anybody else. So I took her word for it. So that was 2 years ago. And today I'm on the RGD board and chair of the education committee. And I started my own design studio this past summer, and concentrating on that full time right now, focusing on UI and UX design, and even doing some consulting with companies on that whole matter. So companies that would already have a design team or a designer and developer, I'm able to come in as a consultant and just kind of walk them through the process in a sense. So it's really been really interesting for me, and of course still liking education and helping to share any of the experience that I've had over the last you know, so many years. So just watching time. So just to close out, I think, and I'm certainly on the questions here and chatting here, but I kind of made a list of advice that I'd love to share with you guys. It was a very long list. Oh my gosh, I just had so many things I just wanted to share, all because I did them and I needed this advice, you know. But I got 8 things that I'll share with you before we wrap up, and if you want to have some questions of that. But the first one is, and I think this is super important because I've learned it and I've seen this, this thing it's so important in students and in other people you work with. Attitude is everything. Like, it's pretty much my super motto. Like, no matter what you're doing, if you have the right attitude, that trumps almost everything. I hear it so much when I was instructing, like from industry. There's like, just bring people in that wants to be here. They want to be here. They're positive. They want to work. They don't need to know everything. They don't need to master Illustrator or that. But attitude is everything. That's number one. Just have a great attitude, because you're going to want to be the person that people want to work with, and that attitude thing can really either be a positive thing or a negative thing, depends on how you approach it. Second thing I'll say is, don't take what you have for granted. Like, I mean, I didn't even really know about RGD until like 15 years into the business, really. So the fact that you guys are here right now and a part of this is so crucial to the resources you have and getting your career off on the right foot. I really strongly believe that this is the way to do it, and being involved and stay involved. It's easy to be involved in here in school, and then once you get out, you're going to be looking for work on that, and it's kind of easy to put RGD kind of on the wayside. But just my advice is to stay connected, stay a member. It's going to be super helpful for you. Third one is turn adversity into learning. So this is me thinking back to my agency time when, I had a really hard time at learning how to do branding and visual identity work, and that was the times it was so stressful. I would feel like I wasn't doing very good, but those adversities helped me to learn and get so much better. And so turn adversity into learning. And then another one is, don't be afraid not to know. Even to this day, I will now admit to anyone that, sorry, I just don't know, but I would love to learn, or I'd love to find the answer, and let's work through it together. Don't try to, pretend you know it all and that you're super confident in that sense. I just be open and honest and transparent to that, right? Here's another one I used to get from industry when they were looking for students, is hone the soft skills. So what I mean by soft skills, like knowing how to do a presentation, knowing how to brainstorm, how to talk with a client, all the things outside of actually doing the design work. Super important to hone those things. And again, industry would tell me as an instructor, these are more important than the design skills right now. We want people to come in to be able to talk to the client about design work, to be able to walk them through that process. And then, that word hone really means refine and perfect. So that's super important. Professional doesn't mean good. So, I considered that I was a professional when I first started. It doesn't mean I was a good designer. It means someone was willing to pay me at the time. But, if you're good and you become good, then the professional part just comes with it. Soon, once you're good and you become really good and great, people just want to work with you and they want to pay you to do great work. So professional doesn't always mean good. So, be professional, become a professional, but then keep working on getting better and better. Find those mentors in the community. Mentors are so important. And this community that you have, RGD is a great example, right? Be in the community that's going to support you and help you, that you're going to learn from. And those mentors, those people that you're meeting at Design Thinkers, whether it's other people attending or those speakers, have people that you're constantly looking up to and you're learning from. And then the last thing I'll mention is taking the time more frequently than I did to recharge and re-inspire yourself, to really re-engage yourself in your profession and your craft. Again, it's so easy to have the blinders on and you're going through the motions day in and day out, but taking opportunities to step back, to look at other people's work, to work with other people, to change up some of the projects you may be working on, attending Design Thinkers every year, being involved. These are all things that helps to recharge and re-inspire. So that's all I have tonight. Thanks so much for having me. Just if you want to connect, my email's there on screen, my Instagram and LinkedIn. Don't expect too much on the Instagram thing. I've been in like a state where this last year I'm like, I'm off social media. I just can't even get into it right now. But I know I need to start getting back into, especially now running Design Studio, upping my game on social media. for sure. But definitely connect with me. I would love to have a connection with you guys that way. And that's all.
Great. Do we have some questions for Faron?
Yeah, I have a question. So thank you for coming to speak to us, first of all. I think
Sure.
we all really appreciate your time. I was just wondering, as just someone who's interested in design education, what was the stage in your career that you were like, yeah, I want to teach design?
It was a 10-year mark. I don't know why. I just felt, well, 10 years, this should be good enough. Yeah. Like I should know something by now that I can pass on to new designers. Yeah, there wasn't a specific thing. I think it was just timing. I was ready for something different, but I still wanted to be part of the design community. And it was actually me approaching Mackenzie College, and I had again known the owner and that since even when I was in school. Like they even had me on commercials at the time. It was crazy. I wish I had the commercial here because I used to show it to my students to, they would get a good chuckle out of that. But it was just one of those situations where it was around that time and I was ready for a change to get out of the agency. And so I thought, you know what, I would like to do this. So the opportunity wasn't there, but I felt I was ready for it. And it was actually 5 years later before I actually had the chance to do it. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I had a question.
Sure.
You were kind of mentioning a little bit about how your experience in the agency was like a little bit difficult in terms of just like confidence and all that jazz. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that? Just because I think it'll help people maybe feel a little bit more normal.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about it, I was a professional designer for 7 years before I got into the agency, so I felt pretty good about myself. I was working before that in-house design, and there was no really any other designers on staff that would challenge anything I would do. And so, you get kind of comfortable and you feel pretty good about that. And actually, I was doing mostly web, and that was one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I need to get more. I want to get into more, more marketing kind of design and that. And so it was there that all of a sudden I was made realize, somebody made me realize that there's a lot of areas that I need to work on, or I at least need to be pushed even further, or think a little bit differently. So I'm not suggesting that there was like a whip or anything behind me, that it was kind of like grinding in a sense, but definitely times when I thought, this was going to work, when I would bring it to my superiors, whatever, it just wasn't what they were thinking on, so it was kind of like, oh man, and then when you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? Like, what is the next step, so that's kind of that adversity I found. But just since then, I still think about that. Like almost every project, I still think about those times and thinking about, and it kind of forces me to think further, to just re-examine it from another angle, ask other people. I ask other designers all the time, their opinions on that, because again, it's, outside of your own mind, and I think we're all kind of experiencing what the design process is, especially when it's all inside of here, right? So having, not being afraid to ask other designers and get their opinions, and then, doing that. So, yeah, late nights, certainly. There's going to be so many great times though, when you see that piece that you've created that's on a billboard or it's out, and people and the clients, just excited about it. And, those are the things that outweigh the other things that might not seem so great at that certain time, at that specific point in the day or in the job.
Thanks. It's always nice
Sure.
to hear people not like paint the picture perfect idea of what it is. It's nice to hear like actual reality.
And everyone's experience is going to be different. I mean, my experience even getting into this, I feel definitely very grateful that I didn't spend, a number of years at other colleges, universities, or in other careers. And there might be some people here tonight, and that's the case, where you're taking a career change and it's completely different, and what you might feel is many years of loss, but I think at least you found your way. So I just feel grateful that that when I started, I stayed on that, and it ended up working out for me in a sense. But yeah, definitely not always the prettiest picture for sure, but in the end, definitely wouldn't change it for me anyway. Hi.
Can I go? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for your great presentation. I just had a question because you mentioned also that people have different paths and like they choose what they want to do. Was there something for you that you, if you could go back in time, you would do it differently in your path?
I don't think the path would be any different. I mean, I just think I should have tried harder in art school. And you would think, it's a pretty cool thing, but first time in on your own, you're young, and like I said, I'll never forget the day when one of my instructors asked me that question. Are you sure? Because I used to also hang around with like the music production guys a lot because I was into music too, and so they were like, you maybe should go into that, but it was something that's got me to somewhere else that led me into design. So that to me was kind of important. I don't know if I had gone to the art school and and been able to experience that. I don't know if I would have been there. I mean, and there's some stuff that I did in art school which I'm still going to tell myself I am going to end up going back to. Like pottery is one of those things that I loved to do at the time. I never did it before, and I know I'll do it again, set up a studio at some point or another, but just not yet. So yeah, I mean, the fact that I had a chance to be a freelance designer, work in-house, work for an agency, I kind of felt like I kind of experienced all those realms together. So yeah, there's really nothing I don't think I would have changed. I wish I would have been able to know to recharge and kind of re-inspire myself earlier. It took me a long time to kind of get out of that rut. So yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Because
Well,
sometimes, we think that, are we on the right path? Are we wasting our time? Am I doing enough? And yeah, it's good to hear. Thank you.
I think you'll always have those days, no matter what. I think we all do, no matter what path we're on. I think it's a gut feeling. A lot of this stuff it's gut feeling for sure.
I've got a quick question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned, finding inspiration, getting out of your box and stuff like that. It's a little difficult right now. Do you have any good places that you go, be it online or otherwise, for inspiration right now?
I mean, I think a lot of it is the same kind of tools we all have, in terms of the online.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of designers, especially seasoned designers, say, to not just rely on Pinterest or Dribble, but it is also a good start. And I agree with them. I mean, being able to get into the library or get it to chapters to check out books, or even just check, talking with even just talking with other designers and like sharing each other's work. And that's something you can do now. I mean, even if you're able to, with a group of other like-minded friends that are in design or whatever, just even doing some of these like virtual socials on a Friday night or something like that, where you can, and then maybe the conversation is not about design, but it's at least a chance for you to kind of recharge, and you can ask some of those questions and work through some things too. So so yeah, it is hard right now to be able to get out of the confines of the online space to do that. But yeah, I mean, usually those are a couple of the go-to places that I always end up. I mean, actually remember when I was with the agency when Pinterest was a thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing,
Yeah.
And then you're trying not to copy exactly what another designer or template has done, right? But it just helps. I'm not one that I can just not usually from a blank page and start going. I really need to feed myself with inspiration and research, and like just today, like I'm working on a new web site for a client, and I normally put a couple of 2 to 3 solid hours of research and inspiration in, and then walk away from before I even come back and start pulling some of that stuff together. So not so much just where you find it, but how you kind of approach it. It's let you, and then like even when, I mean, we always got a face in front of the phone, even if we're on TV or watching TV, we have a phone, like, so even like if you're just subconsciously looking at design work, and you'll never know what'll pop up in Instagram, or you'll just, or Pinterest, or on Dribble, or Behance, right? That you say, you know what, I'm going to pin that because I might want to check that out and revisit it later, So that's how I approach it. Everyone kind of has their own little ways of doing that, but
Yeah. All good points. Thank you.
yeah, sure.
Hi.
Well, I think,
Um,
oh, one more question. Okay, we'll make this the last question if that's okay. Go ahead,
yeah,
Cindy.
sorry. I'll try to be real quick. I was
No,
just
that's
wondering
okay.
if you had any mentors that really stood out and affected and like shaped you or whatnot throughout your career and life.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, definitely I'll speak to the one person who was my superior at the agency that I was with for that 4 years. Like I said, it always didn't feel like it was helpful or fun. The fact that they took time to allow me to kind of like try to work through that on my own, not just give me the answer, but they would say, you know what, you got to go back to the drawing board, and not really give me exactly what I need to do. So that was even harder. I was like, just tell me what you want and I'll do it. But I had to kind of come up with some more ways to figure it out. Like I said, and some of those times for me was super miserable, like driving into the office thinking, I have no ideas what's going to happen today. And it always worked out. I mean, it always, in the end, something came around that worked. They were also, very helpful in kind of just steering me in the right direction. So that would be one scenario. I think other designers in my city here that I know that are colleagues of mine that are doing amazing work is people I look up to. Even if I have more experience than them, it doesn't matter. Like, just the work that they're doing is great. In terms of, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I'm sure you've never heard this. I'm sure you've heard this name over and over again. But I mean, Chris Dawe certainly is someone who has really helped me on the business side of things, specifically. And he has a team of people and other people that I always just gravitate towards that stuff because it's such great free content that even doing some of their courses is really, really helpful too. So yeah, so I there is a few people that I keep going to and looking up to for support and for that mentorship. But and then you think about all the great people that has come through the doors during Design Thinkers, as speakers, right? There's so many great ones. So yeah,
Including Christo.
including Christelle, exactly. Yeah, that was I will say that my students very much knew that I was a fan and made sure he knew. They pretty much dragged him off the stage to bring him down to me, and I was super embarrassed. But anyway, it was cool. So be those students, be those types of students. It's yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for your great presentation.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, we should probably get back to our meeting since it's later for Faron. It's an hour later.
Oh, that's okay.
So I mean, thank you again.
Yeah.
It was great. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too. Thanks so much for asking me. Like I said, reach out anytime. I look forward to hopefully get a chance to meet all of you once we're able to meet in person. Again, it'd be great. And if you do see me or online or otherwise, please don't hesitate to come up and say hello and get chatty.
Thanks, Faron.
Okay. Thanks everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
meeting.
Good night.
Thank you.